So you've got a brand new romance novel and you can't wait to jump into it. Standard meet cute, boy meets girl, boy slams into girl on the sidewalk, boy refuses to apologize even when he knocks her down. Girl insists on him apologizing, and when he refuses and straight up says no, now we've got ourselves a standard enemies to lovers, good old-fashioned tense romance story ready to take off. It's the stuff we live for, right? A bunch of cute run-ins, clashes, forced proximity. They wind up together in a snowstorm, you all, snuggled up in them covers, turning the pages all night long. But what if he slams into her on the sidewalk in the Hamptons, a predominantly Black community like Sag Harbor, filled with lots of wealthy, successful, educated, accomplished Black families? And what if those Black families weren't new, like within the past generation or two? Those prominent, hardworking Black families had been around for over a century, like since the 1800s. How did they come into their money? How do they protect it against all the odds that Black people have to face in America? Let's get into it. My name is Lula White. I am a historical and romantic fiction author. I also write women's fiction, and one of my favorite things that I love to do is weave Black culture, Black intellect, and Black prominence into love stories. As far as I'm concerned, there are so many different layers and levels to Black love. A lot of people did not know that Black people lived in the Hamptons. Black, wealthy, prominent professionals in a place called Sag Harbor. It's a whaling community. It's been around since the 1600s, and it was originally inhabited by, please forgive me if I butcher this, but the Shinnecock Native Americans. In the 1600s, they would capture large whales off the coast of Long Island in New York. They taught the Europeans how to capture what were known as drift whales, whales that had swam into shallow waters, and they would wind up dying when they could not get back into the deeper waters. I know you signed up for this history lesson today, but back before there was electricity, many homes would rely on whale oil in order to oil their lamps and keep their lamps lit. A lot of Black men in the 1600s and 1700s who were running away and needed to survive would go to New York. They would go to Long Island and get on a whaling ship. Even though many men tried doing whaling and they never did it again because they had other options, Black men did not have other options, and they were willing to risk their lives because whaling offered a level of freedom on the high seas that being a slave on a plantation did not offer. When we talk about Black historical figures, we often think Nat Turner, Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. Those are the standard historical figures. I wanted to acknowledge a different kind of Black life. I felt like this was imperative in my romance stories. We rarely hear about Black whalers. How often have you heard about Black whalers? There are more historical figures who were alive back then than just Frederick Douglass and just W.E.B. Du Bois. There were so many other heroic men and women who would put their lives on the line to experience a different kind of freedom, even if that came with a high amount of life-threatening activity that they had to take on, because the alternative was to die a different type of death on a plantation. So by sharing what I learned about Sag Harbor, I introduced a different dynamic. I also introduced my readers to a unique community that many of us had never heard of. Not only are we getting our meet cute love story or our enemies to lovers trope, but we're getting it while we're learning about this amazing community of Black history that's rich with tight-knit community bonds, generational wealth, education, success that has stretched for over 100 years. That takes the story from one dimension to the other. Anyway, if you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you for letting me share that information with you. I get really excited when I get to talk about my research for books. In my next video, I'm going to talk about the Black aristocracy. Only within the last maybe 10, 15 years have we really acknowledged the Black aristocracy, that America has a Black aristocracy. This was one of the reasons why I wrote the Sag Harbor Black romances in the first place, because I wanted readers to know, I wanted the world to know that Black people had an excellent class, however you may feel about it, just like there were white versions of Dallas and Young and the Restless and Knots Landing. I know that there's some division behind that and there are some feelings behind it, but I'm going to at least put the information out there, and then everybody can make their own decisions about how they're going to feel about it. And Black excellence, I know that that's a triggering word for a lot of people, but I'm going to get into it. So I'm going to talk more about that and some of those dynamics in the next video. Thanks if you made it this far.